If you're new here, hit subscribe so you don't miss part 2 of this insane story. Yesterday, Kim Gong-ja was the weakest hunter in the entire tower. Today, the whole world is hunting him. Picture this: a mountain of corpses, blood pooling into the cracks of the stone floor. The sky above the tower is tearing apart. And standing at the very center of the carnage, Kim Gong-ja. He isn't bleeding. He isn't even out of breath. The top guilds have mobilized. S-rank hunters, the unkillable monsters of the modern world, are dropping like flies around him. Helicopters circle the airspace, missiles are locked on. Every government, every guild, every living, breathing human on the planet is looking for one man. They think he's a god. They think a disaster is coming. But how? How did a man who couldn't even clear the tower's tutorial yesterday suddenly become the apex predator of the entire universe? To understand that, we have to go back. Back to when Kim Gong-ja wasn't a god. Back to when he was nothing but trash. Welcome to the tower. A massive, otherworldly structure that appeared on Earth 10 years ago. It brought magic, it brought monsters, and it brought a brutal hierarchy. At the top were the S-ranks. Untouchable gods who ruled the world with an iron fist. And at the very bottom, the F-ranks, the R-classes. The ones who were so pathetic their entire existence was considered a joke. Kim Gong-ja was an R-class. For 10 years, he had stared at the tower. For 10 years, he had dreamed of climbing it. And for 10 years, he had been violently shoved into the dirt by anyone with even a fraction of power. He had no strength, no mana, no skills. He had absolutely nothing. So when the news broke that the weakest man alive had somehow slaughtered an entire S-rank guild overnight, people didn't believe it. But what happens when the whole guild finds out it's true? Kim Gong-ja stood at the entrance of the tower's first floor dungeon. His hands were shaking. His worn-out sneakers were barely holding together. He clutched a rusty iron dagger, the only weapon he could afford. He had waited 3 months for this moment. 3 months of eating instant ramen, sleeping in a cramped apartment the size of a closet, and saving every single coin just to pay the entrance fee for a low-level raid. This was it. Today, he would prove he wasn't useless. The dungeon party was already assembled at the gate. 5 hunters, all C rank, all wearing polished armor and carrying enchanted weapons that glowed with mana, and then there was Gong-ja, R-class, no armor, no skills. A rusty dagger. The moment he stepped forward, the laughing started. Is this a joke? A tall man with flaming red hair stepped out from the group. Viper, C-rank guildmaster of the Red Flame Guild. His sword dripped with fire mana, and his eyes looked at Gong-ja like he was a cockroach crawling across a dinner table. Who let the trash in? Viper said, smirking. Gong-ja tightened his grip on the dagger. I registered for this raid. I paid the fee. Viper laughed. Not a normal laugh. A humiliating, belly-aching laugh that echoed through the dungeon entrance. The other hunters joined in. One of them literally pointed. You paid the fee? Viper wiped a tear from his eye. With what? Lunch money? Gong-ja didn't respond. He couldn't, because everything they were saying was true. He had used 3 months of savings just to stand here. Listen, Viper said, stepping closer. The heat from his sword radiated off the blade. This dungeon has monsters that would eat you alive in 2 seconds. You're not a hunter, you're bait. And not even good bait. He shoved Gong-ja in the chest, hard. Gong-ja stumbled backward and crashed into the dungeon wall. His dagger clattered to the ground. The party howled with laughter. Pick up your trash knife and go home, R-class. The tower isn't a charity. Gong-ja knelt down slowly. His fingers wrapped around the rusty hilt. His jaw was clenched so tight it could crack teeth. But he said nothing. He just turned around and walked away. That was humiliation number 1. Humiliation number 2 came 3 hours later. Gong-ja was sitting on a bench outside the Hunter Association building. He was staring at his registration card. R-class. The letter stared back at him like a brand of shame. Still carrying that thing around? Gong-ja looked up. His heart stopped. Marcus Callion, B-rank hunter, night class. A man who wore armor so clean you could see your reflection in it. And standing next to him? A woman. Long silver hair. Eyes like frozen ice. An S-rank hunter whose name everyone in the country knew. She was beautiful, and she used to be Gong-ja's friend. Used to be. That was before the tower. Before power divided the world into gods and insects. Marcus glanced at Gong-ja's card and sneered, R-class. I didn't even know the association still printed these. The woman said nothing. She just looked away, as if Gong-ja didn't even exist. Gong-ja stood up. I just need one raid, one chance. If you could put in a word, Marcus cut him off. A word? He leaned in close. Here's a word. Leech. The word hit harder than any fist. You think because you knew her before the tower, you matter? Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. You don't. You're a parasite clinging to the boots of people who actually have talent. She's an S rank. You're nothing. Do yourself a favor and stop embarrassing yourself. The woman finally looked at Gong-ja, but there was no sympathy in her eyes. There was pity, and pity somehow was worse. Gong-ja said nothing. He lowered his head and walked away. Again that night, he sat alone in his apartment. The ceiling was cracked. The walls were thin. He could hear the neighbors arguing through the plaster. He stared at his hands. They were calloused from training that went nowhere. 10 years of preparation. 10 years of dreaming. And what did he have to show for it? Nothing. He punched the wall. Then he punched it again. His knuckles bled. And then, something impossible happened. A notification appeared in front of his eyes. Glowing blue text floating in midair. A hidden quest has been triggered. Would you like to change your fate? Gong-ja froze. His blood went cold. What was this? A system message? He had never seen one before. Only hunters with registered skills received system notifications. He was an R class. He wasn't supposed to have access to anything. His hand hovered over the glowing text. 2 options. Yes or no. He thought about Viper's laugh. He thought about Marcus calling him a leech. He thought about the look in her eyes. The pity. He pressed. The world went black. Gong-ja woke up on the floor of a dark alley. His head was pounding. His vision was blurry. The cold concrete pressed against his cheek and the smell of rotting garbage filled his nose. He tried to sit up. His body screamed in protest. Every muscle felt like it had been torn apart and stitched back together. Then he remembered the system message, the glowing blue text, the yes button, and then nothing. Just darkness. He looked around. Alleyway. Trash cans. Flickering streetlight. This was the alley behind the Hunter Association building. The same alley he had walked through 100 times. But something was wrong. He checked his phone. The screen was cracked but functional. The date stared back at him. Wait, this was yesterday's date. Gong-ja's hands trembled. That was impossible. He had gone to sleep in his apartment. It was today. He was sure of it. How could he be back here in this alley on yesterday's date? Then he felt something in his pocket, a crumpled piece of paper. He pulled it out and unfolded it. It was a teleportation ticket, a rare item that allowed any hunter to bypass the tower's first 10 floors. Worth more money than Gong-ja had seen in his entire life. He didn't remember buying this. He didn't remember finding it. So where did it come from? And then a voice. Cold, mechanical, inhuman. The regression complete. 24 hours rewind successful. Gong-ja's heart stopped. The skill activated. I want to become like that person. Yaga's copy the killer's skill. Rewind 24 hours. Guy, he read the words 3 times. Then a 4th time. Then a 5th. Die. Copy the killer's skill. Rewind. His skill wasn't strength. It wasn't speed. It wasn't some flashy elemental power like Viper's flames or Marcus's sword aura. His skill was death. To get stronger, he had to die. And every time he died, he would copy the skill of whoever killed him and return to 24 hours in the past. The implications hit him like a freight train. He could die infinitely. He could copy infinitely. He could regress infinitely. But that wasn't all. Olenk unlocking God class system. 10,000x critical hit. Killing strong enemies multiplies the multiplier. The stronger the target, the greater the stat gain. 1. Current rank. R. Gong-ja stared at the numbers. A level 1 R class with a 10,000x multiplier. If he killed a level 40 enemy, the system wouldn't just give him their experience. It would multiply it. Again, and again, and again. A level 10 nobody killing a level 40 boss wouldn't just level up. He would skyrocket. He would jump ranks in a single kill, but there was a catch. A brutal, ugly catch. He had to die first. Every skill he copied required his death. Every regression required his life to end. To become the strongest, he had to be killed by the strongest. Gong-ja leaned against the alley wall. His breathing was ragged. His mind was racing. He thought about Viper, the way he had shoved him, the way he had laughed. He thought about Marcus, the word leech ringing in his ears. He thought about her, the pity in her eyes, and then he thought about something else, something darker. If Viper was going to kill him anyway, then Gong-ja needed to die by the hands of someone stronger, someone whose skill was actually worth copying. Viper was C rank. Marcus was B rank. They were ants compared to the monsters hiding in the upper floors of the tower. No. If Gong-ja was going to die, he was going to make it count. He closed his eyes. The system message still glowed behind his eyelids. Would you like to check your status window? He opened it. Name, Kim Gong-ja, level, 1 rank, RHP, 50-50D, 10-10 skills. I want to become like that person, SSS class, an R-class hunter with an SS class skill, the weakest man in the world, carrying the most powerful ability ever recorded. Gong-ja laughed. It was a quiet, broken laugh. The kind of laugh that comes from a man who has nothing left to lose. He thought about all those years. 10 years of being spat on. 10 years of being shoved into walls. 10 years of watching other people take what he wanted simply because they were born stronger. And now? Now he held the key to unlimited power. All he had to do was die. Gong-ja stood up. His legs were shaking. His knuckles were still bleeding from punching the wall last night. Or was it tomorrow night? The timeline made his head spin. He stepped out of the alley. The morning sun hit his face. People walked past him like he didn't exist. Hunters in polished armor. Guild recruiters with clipboards. Normal people living normal lives. None of them knew what he had become. None of them knew that the R-class trash they stepped on every day was carrying an SSS-class skill. Gong-ja looked up at the tower. It stretched into the clouds, impossibly massive, impossibly tall. Somewhere inside, the strongest beings in existence were climbing floor by floor. He needed to find one of them. He needed to find someone worth dying to. But first, he had a question. A simple question that would change everything. Where do you find a monster strong enough to make an R-class hunter into a god? The answer was simpler than he thought. The tower's 25th floor, the training ground of the Sword Emperor. A man so powerful that entire guilds evacuated the floor when he practiced. A man whose sword aura could split mountains. A man who had never been defeated. Gong-ja smiled. Not a happy smile. A desperate, determined, slightly unhinged smile. In this world, if you don't have power, you don't have value. Well, he was about to get value, even if it killed him. Quick reminder, like the video if you want the next chapters. This story is about to get insane. Gong-ja used the teleportation ticket. The world dissolved around him. Colors blurred. His stomach lurched as if the ground had been ripped from beneath his feet. When the light faded, he was standing on the 25th floor of the tower. The air was different here. Thicker. Heavier. Every breath felt like inhaling liquid metal. The mana density on this floor was so high that a normal R-class hunter would collapse just from standing in it. Gong-ja collapsed. His knees buckled. His lungs burned. He gasped, clutching his chest. His HP was dropping just from being here. HP, 4750. Mana pressure detected. Great. The floor itself was trying to kill him. He dragged himself behind a stone pillar and caught his breath. His eyes scanned the environment. The 25th floor was an enormous training arena. Broken columns. Cracked earth. Sword marks carved into the walls so deep that they looked like scars on the skin of the world. This was the Sword Emperor's floor. Gong-ja had heard the rumors. Everyone had. The Sword Emperor was a legendary hunter who had cleared the 25th floor alone. He didn't belong to any guild. He didn't take students. He just trained. Every day. All day. Cutting the air with a blade so fast that reality itself split open. And Gong-ja was here to die by his sword. He crept forward. Slowly. Carefully. Each step sent pain shooting through his body. The mana pressure was crushing him from the inside. Then he saw him. The Sword Emperor stood in the center of the arena. He was old. Older than any active hunter Gong-ja had ever seen. White hair. A weathered face. Eyes that looked like they had witnessed the end of the world and found it boring. He held a single blade. No armor. No fancy enchantments. Just a man and a sword. But the air around him screamed. Gong-ja hid behind a broken pillar and watched. The Sword Emperor raised his blade. One strike. A single, casual, lazy strike. The world split. Not the ground, not the wall. The air itself. A visible shockwave ripped across the arena. The stone pillar Gong-ja was hiding behind didn't just crack. It disintegrated. Turned to dust. Atomized. Gong-ja was thrown backward like a rag doll. He crashed into the arena wall 50 meters away. His back shattered on impact. The HP. Agazut, you have died. Cause of death. Sword Emperor's aura. Agazut skill activation. I want to become like that person. Agazut copying target signature skill. Agazut regression initiating. Rewinding 24 hours. Gong-ja opened his eyes. He was back in the alley again. The same garbage. The same flickering streetlight. The same cracked phone showing yesterday's date. But something was different. A skill copied. Sword Emperor's Heavenly Sword Aura. SS class. Agazut new skill acquired. Agazut warning. Skill is SS class. Current body is R class. Mana capacity insufficient for full activation. He had done it. He had copied the Sword Emperor's signature technique, the single most devastating sword skill in the tower, but he couldn't use it. Not yet. His level 1 body couldn't handle the mana cost. It was like putting a rocket engine on a bicycle. He needed to level up. He needed to get stronger, and to get stronger, he needed to die again. But this time, he needed to die strategically. Gong-ja sat in the alley and thought. The Sword Emperor's skill was incredible, but it wasn't enough. Not against the monsters on the upper floors. Not against the people who ran this world. He needed more skills. He needed more deaths. And he needed XP. That's when he remembered the system's other feature. The multiplier. The killing multiple strong enemies at once doesn't just give a bonus. It multiplies the multiplier. What if he could find a dungeon with multiple strong enemies and kill them simultaneously using the Sword Emperor's aura? The XP gain would be astronomical. But how? His body couldn't handle the skill. One use would drain all his mana and probably kill him. He paused. Kill him. That was the point, wasn't it? Gong-ja formulated a plan. An insane, suicidal, completely unhinged plan. Step 1. Find a dungeon with multiple high-level monsters. Step 2. Bait them into one location. Step 3. Unleash the Sword Emperor's aura. Step 4. Die from mana exhaustion. Step 5. Regress with massive XP gains. Step 6. Repeat. He was literally planning his own deaths. Multiple times. On purpose. What kind of person does that? A desperate one. Gong-ja teleported back to the 25th floor. This time, he was prepared. He had spent the last 24 hours memorizing the floor layout. He knew where the monsters spawned. He knew where the Sword Emperor trained. And he knew exactly how to bait the floor's hidden mobs. The 25th floor wasn't just a training arena. It was also home to a hidden dungeon. A secret zone filled with corrupted knights. Remnants of hunters who had died on this floor and been resurrected by the tower's dark mana. They were each level 40, and there were dozens of them. A level 1 R-class hunter walking into that dungeon would be slaughtered in seconds. Perfect. Gong-ja entered the hidden dungeon. The moment he stepped inside, the corrupted knights turned toward him. Their eyes glowed with empty, hollow light. Their armor was rusted. Their swords were broken but still deadly. 12 of them. All level 40, they charged. Gong-ja didn't run. He didn't hide. He stood in the center of the room and raised his hand. He activated the Sword Emperor's aura. The mana ripped out of his body like a dam breaking. Every cell in his body screamed. His veins turned black. His eyes bled. His bones cracked under the pressure. But the aura worked. A single wave of devastating energy exploded outward. It hit all 12 corrupted knights simultaneously. Critical hit. X10,000 multiplier activated. 12 enemies killed at once. Group kill bonus activated. 10,000 by 12, 120,000 X XP gain. Level up, plus 120,000 XP. Like, Agaza, level up, 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 level up. Guy, the notifications flooded his vision. His level jumped from 1 to 15 in a single instant. His stats exploded. His HP tripled. His mana quintupled. But the skill had drained everything. At HP, 0150. Mana, A50. As a dit, you have died. Cause of death, mana regression initiating. Rewinding 24 hours, Gong-ja woke up in the alley. Again, but this time, he was stronger. Much stronger. He checked his status name. Kim Gong-ja level, 15 rank. R-stat override pending. HP, 5150, 75 skills. I want to become like that person. SSS class. Heavenly Sword Aura, SS class. A level 15 R class with SS class skills. The system hadn't officially changed his rank yet, but his stats were already approaching C rank levels. And this was just the beginning. He had 12 corrupted knights worth of XP. He had the Sword Emperor's aura, and he had the willingness to die as many times as it took. Gong-ja stood up. His legs weren't shaking anymore. His body felt different. Stronger, faster, more alive. He looked at his hands. The same hands that had clutched a rusty dagger. The same hands that had been shoved aside by Viper. The same hands that had bled from punching walls. Now they carried the power to split mountains. But he wasn't done. Not even close. He needed to go back. Again. Die again. Copy more skills. Stack more multipliers. Push his level higher, higher, until the word R-class became a joke. Not because of how weak it was, but because of how absurdly strong its bearer had become. But what happens when the tower's system notices an anomaly it can't explain? What happens when the strongest hunters in the world log into the ranking board and see an R-class hunter with S-rank stats appearing out of nowhere? That answer was coming. Sooner than Gong-ja thought. The tower's ranking board updated every hour. Every hunter in the world could access it. Every guild monitored it obsessively. It was the ultimate measuring stick of power. And today, it was broken. The ranking board had a simple hierarchy. S rank at the top, A rank below, B, C, D, E, F, and finally R at the very bottom. The letters were color-coded, gold for S, silver for A, blue for B, green for C, and a dull, embarrassing gray for R-class hunters. Nobody checked the gray section. Ever. It was like checking the scoreboard at the bottom of a marathon. Nobody cared who came in last, but today someone did. Viper was sitting in the Red Flame Guild's meeting room. He had his feet up on the table. His flame sword leaned against the wall behind him, still humming with residual heat. His guild members sat around him, laughing, drinking, celebrating their latest raid. Viper pulled up the ranking board on his phone. He liked to scroll through the C-rank listings and count how many hunters he was stronger than. It was a habit, a petty, arrogant habit. But today, something caught his eye, a notification at the bottom of the screen. Anomaly detected in R-Class registry. Recommend manual review. Jai Viper frowned. An anomaly in R-Class? That was like finding an anomaly in a puddle. How could there be an anomaly in the weakest tier? He tapped the notification, the screen loaded. Then it froze, then it loaded again. The numbers that appeared on screen made no sense. Name: Kim Gong-ja level, 15 rank, RHP, 150 MP, 75 recorded skills, unknown, S-class or above, floor reached. 25 Viper blinked. The numbers didn't change. What the hell? Oh, he muttered. His vice guildmaster, a bulky man named Park, leaned over. What's wrong, boss? Viper showed him the screen. Park's jaw dropped. That's the trash from yesterday. The R-Class guy you shoved out of the raid. He's on the 25th floor, Viper whispered. An R-Class. On the 25th floor. Park's face went pale. That's impossible. The mana pressure alone would kill a C-rank hunter. How is an R-Class even standing on that floor? Viper didn't answer, because he didn't have an answer. The room went silent. The celebration died. Every guild member in the room was staring at the same screen, seeing the same impossible numbers. And Viper felt something he hadn't felt in years. Fear. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Marcus Callion was having his own crisis. Marcus was a B-rank knight. He wore enchanted armor. He carried a blessed blade. He had cleared dungeons that most hunters only dreamed about. He was important. He was powerful. He was respected. And right now, he was staring at his phone with a look of absolute confusion. The Hunter Association had sent him an alert. An automated message flagged by the tower's monitoring system. Attention. Irregular stat growth detected. Hunter Kim Gong-ja, R-Class, has exhibited stat patterns inconsistent with registered rank. Recommend immediate observation. Gadmarcus read the message twice. Then he pulled up Gong-ja's profile. The numbers didn't make sense. An R-Class hunter with HP comparable to a C rank. Mana reserves approaching B rank. And skills classified as SS class or above SS class. The same tier as the Sword Emperor. The same tier as the legendary hunters who had cleared the upper floors of the tower. Marcus set his phone down slowly. He pressed his fingers against his temples. That's impossible, he said out loud, but the data was right there. The tower system didn't lie. It couldn't lie. The numbers were real. So what was he looking at? An R-Class hunter who had somehow acquired SS-class skills and jumped to level 15 in a single day. An R-Class hunter who was standing on the 25th floor, a floor that B-rank hunters struggled to survive. Marcus's mind raced through possibilities. Hidden noble? Suppressed bloodline? Sealed god? There were rumors in the tower, stories of ancient beings who disguised themselves as weak hunters to avoid attention. Legends of families who sealed their children's powers at birth and released them only when the time was right. Was Kim Gong-ja one of them? Marcus picked up his phone and called the association. I need an observation team. Target: Kim Gong-ja, R-Class. Flag him for immediate monitoring. He hung up and stared at the wall. They think he's a hidden god. They think a disaster is coming. But here's the thing about misunderstandings. They don't just create fear. They create chaos, because while Viper was panicking and Marcus was mobilizing observation teams, a third party had noticed the anomaly. The Silver Frost Guild, the most powerful guild in the country. Led by an S-rank hunter whose name commanded silence in every room she entered, the same S-rank hunter who had stood next to Marcus. The same woman who had looked at Gong-ja with pity and turned away. Her name was Seo Yeren. And right now, she was reading the same impossible data on her own screen. She sat in her office. The room was pristine. White walls, a glass desk, a single sword mounted on the wall behind her, a reminder of every floor she had cleared, every monster she had slain. Her assistant stood nervously at the door. Ma'am, the association flagged this hunter for observation. We received a copy of the alert. Seo Yeren took the tablet. She read the numbers. She read them again. Her expression didn't change. But her grip on the tablet tightened. The screen cracked under the pressure of her fingers. Kim Gong-ja, she said quietly. Ma'am, find him. I want to know everything. Where he goes, what he eats, what dungeons he enters, who he talks to. The assistant hesitated. Ma'am, he's just an R-Class. This could be a system error. Seo Yeren looked up. Her eyes were cold, freezing cold. The kind of cold that doesn't come from temperature, but from absolute certainty. The tower system doesn't make errors, she said. An R-Class hunter with SS-Class skills who appeared on the 25th floor overnight is not a system error. It's a warning. A warning of what? She set the cracked tablet on her desk and stood up. Of something we can't control. Back on the 25th floor, Gong-ja had no idea any of this was happening. He was too busy dying. Again, he had gone back to the hidden dungeon. Again, he had baited another group of corrupted knights. Again, he had unleashed the Sword Emperor's aura. Again, he had died from mana exhaustion. Again, and he had regressed. Again, level up plus an 8,000 XP. A good level up. Level up, level up, level up. Level up, 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 level up. His level jumped from 15 to 28. His stats were now solidly in B rank territory. His mana pool had tripled. His HP was approaching 500. But the system hadn't changed his official rank. He was still registered as R-Class. The gray letter was still stamped on his profile, and that was the problem, because every time the ranking board updated, the numbers got more insane. An R-Class hunter at level 28, with SS-Class skills. On the 25th floor, soloing dungeons that full parties of C-rank hunters couldn't clear, the data was spreading. Guilds were sharing screenshots. Hunter forums were exploding with theories. Everyone was asking the same question. Who is Kim Gong-ja? Some said he was a hidden noble from an ancient hunter family. Others said he was a regressor, someone who had lived multiple lives and retained their skills. A few even suggested he was a disguised guide god walking among humans. They were all wrong, but they were all terrified. And Gong-ja? He was standing in the middle of a dungeon, covered in monster blood, checking his status window with a confused expression. Why was his name trending on every hunter forum in the country? He hadn't told anyone what he was doing. He hadn't joined a guild. He hadn't registered his skills. He had been completely invisible for 10 years. So how did everyone know? The answer was simple. The tower's ranking board was public, and an R-Class hunter with B-rank stats and SS-Class skills didn't just appear on the board. He screamed from it. Gong-ja stared at his phone. The forums were on fire. His name was everywhere. Screenshots of his stats were being shared thousands of times. Theories were multiplying like wildfire. He had wanted to be noticed. He had wanted people to stop treating him like trash. But this wasn't what he had imagined. This was a target on his back, and the people aiming at it weren't C-rank bullies or B-rank knights with shiny armor. They were S-rank hunters, guild masters, the people who ran the world. They think he's a god. They think a disaster is coming. But what happens when the disaster finds out they're coming for him? Gong-ja decided to pay Viper a visit, not because he was angry, not because he wanted revenge. Okay, maybe a little of both, but mostly because Viper had something he needed. Information. Viper was connected. He knew people in the Hunter Association. He had contacts in every guild. If anyone knew why S-rank hunters were suddenly interested in an R-Class nobody, it was the man who had shoved him into a wall 3 days ago. Or was it tomorrow? The regressions were making his timeline impossible to track either way. It was time. Gong-ja walked through the front door of the Red Flame Guild building. No stealth. No hiding. No sneaking through back alleys. He just walked in. The lobby was empty. Polished marble floors. A reception desk. Glass walls displaying trophy weapons from past raids. The whole place smelled like money and arrogance. The receptionist looked up. She was about to ask for his identification when her eyes flicked to his registered rank on the visitor screen. R-Class. Her expression shifted from professional courtesy to barely concealed disgust in exactly half a second. This is a guild building, she said. Not a shelter. R-Class hunters need an appointment too. Gong-ja kept walking, right past the desk. Right through the lobby, the receptionist stood up. Hey, you can't go in there, he could. He did. The guild members in the hallway turned to look at him. A man in C-rank armor stepped forward, blocking the path. Who the hell are you? Gong-ja didn't slow down. He walked right into the man's personal space and looked up at him. The guild member was a full head taller, broad-shouldered, armed, but something in Gong-ja's eyes made him step aside. He didn't know what it was. Instinct, maybe. The primal part of his brain that screamed danger when a predator was near. Gong-ja reached the meeting room door. He could hear voices inside. Viper's loud, arrogant laugh. The clink of glasses. He opened the door. The room went silent. Viper was sitting at the head of the table. His flame sword was propped against his chair. His Vice Master Park sat to his right. 8 guild members total. All armed. All C-rank or above, and in the doorway stood Kim Gong-ja, R-Class, level 28, wearing the same worn-out clothes, the same cracked shoes, but carrying himself like he owned the building. Viper's smile vanished. You, he said. Me, Gong-ja replied. Viper stood up slowly. His hand drifted toward his flame sword. Old habit. The reflex of a bully who had never needed to actually fight someone weaker than him. I told you to stay out of my guild, trash. Did you not understand, or are you just that stupid? Gong-ja stepped into the room. The door closed behind him. 8 pairs of eyes tracked him. Nobody moved. I need information, Gong-ja said calmly, and you're going to give it to me. Viper laughed, a nervous laugh, the kind of laugh that hides fear. He looked at his guild members, expecting them to join in. They didn't, because they had seen the ranking board. They knew the numbers. An R class with SS class skills. Level 28. Stats that didn't make sense. Viper hadn't checked the board since yesterday. He had been too busy celebrating. He didn't know what his guild members knew, but he was about to find out. Information, Viper scoffed. What makes you think I'd give you anything? You're nothing. You were nothing yesterday, and you're nothing today. Gong-ja tilted his head. Yesterday, I was nothing. Today, I'm standing in your guild hall while 8 armed hunters are too afraid to move. The silence was deafening. Viper's eye twitched. He looked at Park. Park looked at the floor. You think I'm afraid of you? Viper's voice cracked. Just slightly. Just enough for everyone in the room to notice. He drew his flame sword. The blade ignited. Fire roared to life, filling the room with heat and orange light. The temperature jumped 20 degrees in an instant. Let me show you what happens to R-class trash that doesn't know their place. Viper swung. It was a full-power strike. A C-rank guild master's strongest attack. Flame mana poured off the blade. The air itself caught fire. The strike was fast, brutal, and aimed directly at Gong-ja's chest. Gong-ja raised one hand. The flame sword stopped. Dead. The blade sat in the center of his palm, burning, screaming with heat and mana, but it didn't move. Not an inch. Viper's eyes went wide. What?